Welcome back to the Midwest Mountaineering Outdoor Adventure Expo. With me today, virtually, is Michelle Schroeder. She's the owner and founder of Backpack, the Trails. Michelle's presenting on Northern California's Lost Coast. So without further ado, here's Michelle.
Hi, folks. Thanks for joining me. Don, can you just mention one more thing where
Oh
if
yeah,
people want to make a comment that they can find that they can sign up in the chat somehow?
yeah, definitely. Thank you for reminding me on that. So under the video player viewer at the outdooradventureexpo.com site, there's a click to join chat box. We'll be taking questions through there, and I'll be moderating that and getting them over to Michelle so we can answer them in live time or at the end. So there you go.
Great. And folks, sign up now. Make sure you're in that chat box so that if we get to the end, all of a sudden you're not panicked trying to figure out how to do that. You'll be ready to go. Don, thank you so much for the introduction and making sure that people know how to extend some questions. I'm Michelle Schroeder. This is Northern California's Lost Coast presentation. First and foremost, I want to make sure to thank Midwest Mountaineering, a place that's near and dear to my heart. I had worked there for 4 years, part-time with a great group of people. Learned a lot while I was there. They are having their expo this spring. I think they're open for another hour or two yet today. Just check online to see those hours. Everything's on sale in the store. In-person shopping is available. They're also open for curbside pickup. They do have an online store. So if you do know what you want, just call and they'll help you out at the door. I also want to thank Ginny Galbraith. She is my marketing consultant, and she's so much more than that. She's just really an amazing human being. Great family. They live out west. She's in Bozeman, Montana. We've been working virtually. I met her during my wilderness first responder recertification. And she is also a contributor to Tales of a Mountain Mama. So if anybody out there has kids and they're wondering how to get your kids in the outdoors, it's a great website. So I'm going to first of all give an introduction of myself, and then I'll get into talking about the Lost Coast. So I have been asked, like, what was my toughest trip? Well, my first two backpacking trips were my toughest trip, which is why I started my business, because no one else needs to go through what I went through, which was a bear eating all of my food, except for the oranges, the fresh oranges. Yes, I brought those in. And then stove that conked out, a water filter that conked out. It was pretty bad. So now I started there, and then I've been doing trails like this one here, which I've presented on before. It's the Wonderland Trail that circumnavigates Mount Rainier. It's 93 miles with 23,000 feet of elevation gain and loss over 7 days, which was half the typical itinerary. I came back with pretty sore knees from the descents every day. So since then, I've really endeavored to try to stay in shape so I can take something on. This was a last minute invitation. And I wasn't ready for it, but I learned my lesson. It was beautiful, changed my life completely. My favorite trail these days is my 211 John Muir Trail solo that I did with capping it off with a summit of Mount Whitney, which is the highest peak in the lower 48. That was 21 days on the trail solo. My favorite local trail these days is the Border Route Trail. I fell so in love with this after doing this 2 years ago. I've done it since then as well, but I'm now on the Border Route Trail Association's board of directors as their secretary. Yes. And then, of course, my other favorite local trail is Minnesota's Superior Hiking Trail. Here it is in full summer. You can even see the humidity in the air. It's great. Some other trails that I've done, I spent 3 weeks in New Zealand. This year is the infamous Milford Sound on a boat tour. This is Mount Robson up in Canada, in British Columbia. This is the Blue Glacier at the end of the Hoh River Valley Trail in the Olympic National Park out in Washington State. This here is Todd Harbor during a full traverse of Isle Royale along the Minot Trail, which is the tougher of all the trails that are out there. Grand Canyon, I've been down there, I don't know, 6 times or so. I do offer a trip out here too. I don't have that trip up on my website yet, but that'll be in October, that'll be in November this year. October, November, I'll figure it out. But if you're interested in doing that, I do something that's a little bit more off the beaten path. I don't do rim to rim. Eventually I'll do that. But I like being out on the Tonto Trail where you can go 11 miles and not see a soul. I've done some trail breaking with cross-country skis with Will Steger on some of his urban guerrilla stuff. Some of you may have seen that in the Star Tribune with one of his other friends. And this was, I think, 18, 20 miles that day, breaking trail and with 50 below wind chills. And we ended up eating sushi in St. Paul later that evening. This is kayaking on the water trail that's along Lake Superior. And then I've done some pretty heavy duty environmental advocacy as well. I always seem to have a pretty serious side gig. My backpacking business is my full-time gig these days. And but one of the initiatives that I worked on when I was at the city, I was a two-term mayoral appointee, both Mayors Hodges and Ryback. One of them I chaired was recognized by the Obama administration twice for being its first of its kind in the country. I became a wilderness first responder before I opened my business. I was taking a lot of friends out on the trail. And then their friends wanted me to take them out on the trail. So, and I wanted to make sure everyone was going to stay safe. I'm really ethical and responsible about my backpacking and what I teach people as well out on the trail, really hoping to instill a lot of care and just good ethics into backpacking out there. So this here is my business, and I teach people how to backpack, and then I also organize and lead more tech trips. I've got one trip out to Isle Royal for women 50 plus. That sold out right away. We'll be taking, I'm chartered an entire float plane out of Hancock, Michigan to take the 6 of us out there. I've got a couple of those this summer, one space left in June, which is going to be really fun. So folks are here. Thanks for hanging in there during my introduction. This here is the Lost Coast in California, and this is an impassable zone, which is what the Lost Coast is known for. And then Adon, am I on the picture yet?
Yes.
I'm not sure if Adon's still there. Okay, am I in the corner?
Yes.
All right, great. Hi, everybody, now that I know for sure. So just want to say hi to everybody. I hope you're having a good time tuning into all the stuff that the Expo has to offer. I love Expo. What drew me to this trail? So years ago, I was out there with my friend Robert, and you'll see pictures of him here throughout the presentation. He and I have been friends for well over 20 years. He works at the store and is kind of a fixture there. And if you want great advice, he's a really good salesperson to go to. He and I went out here years ago and kind of dabbled on the south end. We found out about this through Lonely Planet Guide. And ever since then, we just kind of did a little day hike and came back out. And I just thought, oh my God, I have got to do this trail. And for some reason, I was busy doing other trails. I think the logistics for this thing were hard. When we first went out there, the locals, I mean, the closest town is Leggett, and nobody there, I mean, they have a gas station there, and nobody had heard of the Lost Coast Trail. So it was really hard to find information on this. And you'll see why here in a bit. It's becoming more discovered. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about some of the logistics. I'm also going to throw some gorgeous photos in here, orient ourselves as to where this is. And then I kind of bounce around on some of that stuff a little bit. So obviously this is the Golden Gate Bridge. So I took a really early morning flight that day out of the Twin Cities, landed in San Francisco, and then drove north. Petrolia is a little, well, it's one of the small towns as to where we were located, but this kind of shows you where you're at. And this is zooming in a little bit more. So some other towns you might recognize are Eureka in the north, and then Fort Bragg in the south. Humboldt Redwood State Park, if you're out there in that neck of the woods, no pun intended, really put that on your itinerary. It's one of the most amazing places I've ever seen in my life. I've been there 3 times specifically. So you'll see that little green stuff there right underneath where it says Humboldt Redwood State Park. That green stuff, that is essentially where we're going to be going on this little tour here, and that covers the Lost Coast in California. So you're going to see a few different maps here. It's about a 4.5 hour drive north from San Francisco. You want to make sure, I flew, so I needed to make sure I was going to hit a store. I got REI in Santa Rosa to pick up my fuel. That was a long day. It was and this is to the southern terminus of the Lost Coast Trail, Usel Road, where we met our shuttle. And then so Leggett is the town that I mentioned earlier. It's the closest town that's on Highway 101. You'll notice with the little green line there, where that kind of does the little chicken bone down there on the left, that's where Highway 1 starts coming in. It meets up with Leggett, it stops, and there's a 65-mile stretch that is now the Lost Coast. They couldn't build roads there. It's too unstable. And so it's kind of this naturally preserved area. You'll see Sinkyone Wilderness State Park way up in the left corner of that, kind of in faint gray lettering. A lot of people talk about the Lost Coast and they say they've done the Lost Coast, and I've been watching more and more advertising about the Lost Coast. And they all just talk about the northern section, which is really unfortunate because the Sinkyone Wilderness State Park is actually part of it. It's almost half of the Lost Coast Trail. And so, and it's exquisite. So I'll show you some pictures of that too. So we left a car at Usal Road. And this, so when we first went there, it said mile marker 90.88 on this stretch of Highway 1. It's really windy. And it's an unmaintained road, even though it's not technically marked. This is much more marked than it was the very first time that I was there. So you'll see that I don't even know what it looks like now, but this is what it looked like when I did it the last time a few years ago. And so you've got chalk stuff all over the road. You've got the cute little happy flags in the back. And the cute little stop sign there on the left that looks all festive until you get a little closer and it says Lost Coast or Eaten and Killed. So if you're going to be parking your car down at the southern terminus, you really want to make sure you're not leaving anything in there. There have been some squatters down there, some meth labs and stuff down there. You just really want to make sure you're not leaving anything in there. If you have a rental car, get your extra insurance. Just know that that's what you're getting yourselves into. Yeah, happy. But it's part of the adventure, right? And so, yeah. Now they had a fire here. I'll talk about the fire. Well, I don't do my trip all the way to the south anymore with clients. If this is something where I didn't have to pre-plan it way in advance to give the pitch on this and make all the logistics lined up right away, I would include the entire southern section. I do part of it, the really pretty part. But there was a fire here a couple of years ago, and they're worried that there's going to be a landslide at some point, and essentially the Usal Road won't exist anymore. So, but you can see this if you decide you want to take that on, go for it. See if the video will work. Oops, let's head back here. So you want to make sure you've got a full tank of gas, and you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye out for any oncoming traffic. I mean, I've been stunned to see Winnebagos and stuff make it out here. It doesn't look that rough, but it actually really is. And you've just got this straight drop down to the left. That's your first peak of the southern section of the Lost Coast that goes through those mountains there. The Impassable Zone in the north gives you some headlands. Down in the southern section, it doesn't. So you're doing switchbacks up and over these ridges to get to the next watershed, which is where most of the campsites are located. It's really beautiful. So if you are going to do the Usal Road campsite, there is a little deposit box where you can put your money in. Don't do it. You're just going to have the people down there steal it. There isn't going to be really a form to even fill out. California state parks are broke. And and when you get down there, make sure that you're figuring out where the trailhead, the southern terminus trailhead exits. Because otherwise you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be wandering around this huge park trying to figure out where your car is located. So get that dialed in. This is Bill. I think this is at the northern terminus later that same day. I think I was on a 7 a.m. flight. This is about 10:30 at night by the time we got up to the campground on the northern end after shuttling us the whole way. He looks pretty somber there. He's a great guy. He'll chat your ear off. He's pretty reasonable. For that time, though, it was $400 for just the two of us. If you can get your group together, $75 per person for 8 people, Bill Abram. I think he's the best of the 3 different shuttle services that are out there. This is starting to become kind of a discovered part of the country as far as trails go. And so there might be some other shuttle services and stuff that will pop up over time. At that point, pricing included resupply at Shelter Cove. So he's your guy. And he does shuttle people the entire length of the trail. A lot of people, they'll only shuttle only the northern half of the trail. That's his office and his cell number. Feel free to take a photo of that website or this slide if you'd like. He has no email and no website. He doesn't even take a deposit. He just takes you on your word. So be fair to the guy. If you book it and you've got excess numbers or you cancel, let him know as soon as you can. He was kind of going fairly slowly. Robert was falling asleep in the back seat of the pickup truck, and I was starting to really struggle in the passenger seat. And I do struggle a little bit with motion sickness. I was really glad he had one of these left in here, and I took it within minutes. I felt better. If you want to take ginger chews, even something that ginger chews will work too. then he really kicked it into high gear, and those roads were pretty scary. So again, we're going to be looking at some maps here. So the northern section of the Lost Coast actually goes a little bit south of Shelter Cove. Black Sands Beach exits north of Shelter Cove. Mattole River Campground is the northern terminus. Useful Road's the southern terminus. So it took us about 3 hours to get to the northern terminus. So you're looking at your flight, 4.5 hours to the southern terminus, another 3.5 hours to the northern terminus. And so we decided to go south. And the stuff, that little kind of blue section on the bottom, that's Sinkyone Wilderness State Park, which is really beautiful. So this is, you're gonna start seeing some pictures here, and I apologize for not having more on here to begin with. I just wanted to get folks oriented. So this is Mattole River Campground. It's self-registration and bring cash enough. I don't think it's $12 or something like that. And so there's lots of vegetation. There's a lot of vegetation around there. We could hear things kind of creepy crawlies through there the entire night. You have some squatters there too. Some people who live there up in their RVs as well. And then this was one of the things that the cute little animals that were roaming around in the bushes. There's a lot of cats there and stuff too. It's he looks really healthy. He was a really cute little dog. And but don't pet any of the animals there, as hard as that was to do. There's poison oak absolutely everywhere on this trail. So the urushiol oil gets on their fur. You pet them, you have it on your hands. And I'll talk about the product that you need to bring with you to make sure you can handle that. It's Technu soap, but I'll show you a picture of it. A lot of other people camped out there too. It's beautiful. That's the ocean off in the distance with a little bit of fog, which lifted. So overnight trail permits for the trail are required. They open up on October 1st. This is a new thing that they started doing 2 or 3 years ago, and October 1st this year, they were gone for the entire year. So I have a trip that's coming up in June. My trips I've listed as sold out. They have a bunch of restrictions this year on numbers of households, which has just changed. If you get onto the King Range National Conservation Area's website, recreation.gov is where you get the permits. But if you want information, you go to the King Range National Conservation Area's website, and that stuff's not updated yet. They've gotten out of code red, and so they've opened it up to the different numbers of households that can go, but that could change any minute depending upon what the pandemic does. So I do have space if folks are interested. We'd go in on the 16th of June and then pop out on the 20th. So you could tag along. That's actually turned into a friend's trip. I would have had to forfeit my permits. And so because they all sold out, they tacked on the commercial permits just separately. So if anybody's interested in that, hit me up. I'll give you my contact information at the end here. You'd have to stay with my group though. And this might be, it's probably gonna be more aggressive than what it looks like on the website. It'll be fun though. Recreation.gov is where you get your permits. May 15th to September 15th, they allow 60 people out on the trail per day. The rest of the year it's 30. So the main season, summertime, it's they restrict it in half. So it's $6. It's non-refundable. That's for the whole group. There's a 5-person limit per permit. It's first come, first served online. There's no lottery. There's no walk-ups. And you can, if you're lucky and you're on your ball game, you can get, I think up to 3 permits. So with your group. Campfire permits are required. And it's banned from mid-June through mid-October for campfires. You need to really be checking the current conditions all the time for any additional bans. Sometimes they actually ban your camp stoves too. And so you need to know about that part. You've got to really be checking on that. So you have to actually get on their website, the California website for fire permits. You need to provide, excuse me, a tentative itinerary of where you're going to be going. And you also need tide charts, and that's kind of the big draw for people for the Lost Coast. This is really kind of the fun part. You need to be able to read them, have them on hand, and plan your itinerary based on the tides and your pace. And I'll show you what those where I got mine from. And bear canisters are mandatory out there too. And you can buy them. Some places will rent them out to you. I know with the pandemic, a lot of places have retracted the ability to do that. You used to be able to do this from the BLM office out there and some of the shuttles, but I don't think you can do that anymore. A lot of this stuff is shifting around now. And if you have permit questions, contact the BML office near Shelter Cove. That's their number. And as always, check the current conditions before your trip. They might have fire issues out there. You want to check water conditions, all that stuff. So this is the bear can that Robert and I used. It's one of those carbon ones. It's not very big. We did do a resupply. I think we spent 3 days on the north, 3 or 4 days on the north, and 3 or 4 days on the south. It was one or the other. The northern section is longer, so it was probably 4 days on the northern end. And so I made sure with the resupply that all the stuff would fit in there before I handed the resupply off. And then I made sure everything would fit in here before we took off, because that's not something you want to be cramming, shortcutting. And you'll see why here later on the trail in the presentation. But that gives you a sense of size. Some of these like Barricade and all these other ones are a lot bigger. If you repackage some of your food, maybe write whatever the instructions are if you're doing dried food. You don't, if you're really smart about this and don't mind crushing some of your food, you can fit it in there for 2 people easily. So this, you'll see different sections of maps. Mattole River campground is up there at the top where the horse and the backpackers are. And I did a lot of math trying to figure out timing and, distances and stuff. And so I wrote all over my maps. And this here is your first impassable zone. When you get to Punta Gorda Lighthouse. I'm stumbling around here, wishing my brain and my mouth could work together faster. So here's NOAA, National Outdoor and Atmospheric Administration. This is where you want to get your tide charts from. And it's great. It can be a little sticky trying to get it to adhere to Shelter Cove, California, just futz with it a little bit. And then you can actually do date spans, you can do day spans, you can do all of this stuff. These are all estimates. You'll also see at the registration board on the northern terminus what their estimates are. Those are usually a few days old. These tend to be more real time. They still predict, but then they update them as time goes on. And then the mark that you're looking for is 3 feet. You don't have to go at exactly low tide. Ideally you want to go as the tide is 3 feet and it's going out. If the tide's coming in and you're well below 3 feet, you're going to be fine. There are sections of the trail where they lose 3 people. I think last year, the year before, they lost 3 people out there. It's no joke. And it was because of the tides. So you really want to make sure you know how to read these. It's not rocket science. You're not going to need to take a class to figure out how to read it. Just spend some time looking at them. You'll be like, oh, okay. So, and it says 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. The middle of that would be 9 a.m. Figure out what time your morning tide is going to be at 3 feet. And then that tells you when you need to kind of do your math backwards for when you need to break camp. So one of the other things that they have there too, you've got strong sleeper waves, they call them. When I checked in with the ranger's office before we went out there, they said that there was a typhoon out by Hawaii that might affect wave heights out here on the Lost Coast in California. You also have 3 tectonic plates out there, 3, what do they call them? Where the earthquakes happen, I'm drawing a blank. But they have that stuff out there. So you're going to want to make sure you're paying attention to the waves at all times. Keep your ears open. If all of a sudden things get really quiet, that could mean that you have a tsunami coming in. My mom was all worried about that. She watched it, and there was an earthquake down in Chile, which triggered a small 3-inch tsunami up here. So this stuff is all related. Just be really careful out there. So there's a lot of deep sand on a lot of this section of trail. I'm going to grab my notes here because I've got some really good stuff to share. So I think it's the 2/3 of the northern section are either in sand or on boulders. And so you want to, when you're calculating your time for when you want to go meet up at the impassable zones, you want to take this stuff into consideration. It looks easy, but beach sand is deep and it takes a little bit more time. And so if you kind of look you can see that line and you'll see Robert is for scale. Robert's in there. He's the little backpacker, kind of central right. And there's great signage out there. And you can see there is a little bit of a bottleneck at some of these you'll start seeing other backpackers heading out of the campsite just as you're heading out. And that for me, I was like, oh, shoot, I'd rather have the trail to myself. But the advantage to this is that it's likely that your math is fairly correct. And so is theirs. And so you can get that reassurance. Whatever you do, though, make sure you're hiking your own hike because their math could always be off. So, and then you can kind of see where that vegetation on the right, usually I have a laser pointer when I'm giving these presentations, I don't. So just where that vegetation ends on the right, you can kind of see it's a little bit flatter there. That's actually the trail in that location. I always like to share what kind of some of the trail conditions look like so people know what they're getting themselves into. And they do have a couple of different electronic apps, and I'll talk about those later. But sometimes as you're hiking along, it's really hard to know if you've reached an impassable zone. So you'll see stuff like this as you're approaching it. It's like, oh, so is that the first impassable zone or not? And as you look at when you do reach an impassable zone, this is not one of them, but when you do reach an impassable zone, uh, you don't know, you can't tell what's around the corner, and you don't know. Some of these impassable zones, there's 3 of them. Some are 4 miles long. So it's like, okay, what's going to be around the corner? Am I going to have to run through this whole thing? It's a little stressful. So more so than your typical trail. So all of your named creeks, they typically will have water. I mean, California has been having some really serious droughts these last few years. So again, call the ranger's office ahead of time and ask. This is a little bit later in the season. This was September when we went here. The best time of year to go is April through October. So they do have some rainy seasons out there otherwise. But a lot of people will bring water shoes to cross these. This year is later in the season, it's early September. So it was easy to just get across these without having to change footwear at all. And I use trail runners, so I would have just gone through them and let my feet be wet. You might see something way off in the distance on the right there. That is Punta Gorda Lighthouse. I want to see if I can find my little notes on the Punta Gorda Lighthouse. It's a 2-story concrete lighthouse. It's about 4.5 miles into the hike. Lots of day hikers will head out there, have a little picnic, and then head back. It was built in 1911 and abandoned after World War II. It's too remote and costly to maintain. It was initially accessible only by horse. It was in 1951, they built a lighted buoy offshore and they closed up the lighthouse. Some structures were demolished and they've only got, I think, 2 left there. And then some California hippies moved in there in the 1960s. They were subsequently kicked out. And the lighthouse and the oil house are all that remain on the 22 acres. So it's a pretty cool place to poke around and check out. I felt safe enough to climb that and get the beautiful view out there. You can see a bank of clouds way out there that had retreated. So we were getting some really nice views. And out there in that, on the right there, you can see a little sea lion colony that lives out there, which is really fun. They're making their typical noise. And if they hadn't been making noise, I'm not even sure I would have seen them. They kind of blend in. And so here's the map again. So we're leaving Punta Gorda Lighthouse. There is an impassable zone just past that, and that's just one spot. These other impassable zones are 4 miles in length. And again, you can see me doing my little math there, figuring out how long is it going to take to get different places. So these are the 2 maps that I use. The one on the left is what I used for the northern section. The one on the right is not a very good map, but it's all that I could find for paper maps. And I was out there right kind of at the beginning of the whole navigation GPS apps. And so I just relied on these. And it was a little tough figuring out where the impassable zones were. This one here where you see the impassable zone mentioned, I'm just backtracking here 1 slide. You'll see the impassable zones marked. So that'll show up on the map on the left. The map on the right, it's not listed there. And there are a couple of other maps out there too that don't show where the impassable zones are. They don't even make mention of them. So you'll want to make sure you're careful about that. And then for apps now, I was looking these up today. So I use the Gut Hook app on the John Muir Trail. Killer app. The thing is just off the charts. It's great. So just type in Lost Coast, note that, and you'll see the little on the map picture down there, you'll see the little fork and knife, that's Shelter Cove. So it covers only the northern section of the BLM section. There's another section of the BLM that goes south of Shelter Cove, and then you cross the boundary to Sinkyone, a wilderness state park. So, but a lot of people say they've done the Lost Coast. This is just what they're talking about. I think it's 24 miles. And I think the whole thing is actually 52. So the Avenza app, if you're going to endeavor to do the Sinkyone Wilderness section, the southern section, I tried typing Sinkyone in under enter location. Some other maps showed up, but that didn't make any sense at all. And keywords, I typed in Sinkyone, and then it populated Wilderness State Park, and it's like $3.99. This other one here for the northern section is like $4.99. That's Guthook. So Avenza app for the southern section. And so we're going to start hiking some more. This is a lot of times the trail, you can see it there. It's on the headlands at the ocean down below, Pacific. And then this is indeed one of the impassable zones. So this section here, all these you can see some folks kind of behind that rock that's there on the beach. You can see a little dot of red there if you've got your big screen open. Those are people that's tiny. If you were there at high tide or a sneaker wave or sleeper wave came in, you'd be in trouble. You'd have to drop your pack and just scramble up as high as you could. But these folks here, that guy is a lifeguard down in LA, and he was watching the tide, and they hung out with their dog for a bit, just chilling out, waiting for enough tide to go out so that they could go across. And it was nice because when we were there, this was new to me. So to be able to understand when to actually cross. And so just stood there and kind of looked at the waves, chilled out. And then they took off and we followed behind, and they were really fast backpackers. If you are bringing your dogs, really assess what beach sand does to your dog's feet. If they're willing to wear booties, or if you've got some of that cream you can put on their feet, that's probably a good idea, because they'll get pretty beat up out there. And so there is some private property out there, and there are easements to go through that. I would say 50% of the private property we saw out there, I think there may be 5 or 6. There were some people there staying there. You just wave, they'll wave back, but don't go poke around. Don't be nosy. You know, I would hate to have any of this stuff vandalized at all, or that they feel it's intrusive. It's amazing when people let us go through their property, and that these trails can be contiguous rather than having sections that are closed or creating reroutes around them. This is one section. This is another part of the impassable, that second impassable zone for 4 miles. It can be pretty sketchy. There is kind of a little workaround. If you end up here in the tide's high, it kind of goes up to the left. This is also for scale. This is really some interesting geology that's out there. I sent this to a friend of mine who is a geologist, and because I thought this was maybe one of those, not the rifts, I'm not drawing a blank as far as what they're called, from the earthquake. And he said, no, this isn't. This is just sediment that's been, moved around. And then again, this is within that first 4 mile section of impassable zone. The whole thing doesn't look like this. There are spots within that impassable zone that are impassable, but instead of having 11 impassable zones out there as 11 impassable spots, they just made the whole thing an impassable zone. Oops. Let's see here. So that's me, yours truly, and that trail behind me, that's the trail. So that's washed out, twice a day. You have 2 high tides, 2 low tides. You have a high tide, a low high tide. You have a high tide and a low high tide. And different times of the year, the tide never goes below 3 feet. So if you get onto the NOAA's tide chart stuff, you can kind of quickly glance through and figure out what time of year can I actually do this? How's that tie into weather? I know for this year, pretty much anytime after August, you're not going to have tide that's below 3 feet. But people still go out there. They'll take their chances. This is one of the creeks. This is the dead whale in there. And so obviously was trying to swim up, or maybe some high wave came in and it got stuck there. If you see that kind of stuff, just hike up the creeks a little further and you'll find fresher water that, and ugh, can't even imagine. So just be careful when you're out there getting water. Here's the impassable zone again. There's Robert, after having made it through the impassable zone. I know him well, and I was there, and he's pretty stressed out. He's cool about it, but it's a scary trail. Again, you don't want to get caught out here. Hope that didn't give anybody vertigo. It's a little fast. So again, the signage out there is great. Now, if you look at the map, like say you're looking at a paper map, or you're zooming in Google Earth, whatever that, whatever you decide to for your research, you'll see there's Spanish Ridge Trail. You've got King Peak, which is up there. That is the highest peak. I don't think it's in the photo here, but I did do a day hike up there last fall. I cruised out there to just kind of see what was going on and stay updated on what was available for clients. And that's a 4,000 foot mountain, and you can hike up that. There are trails that go all the way along up there. They connect to each other. You still, if you're going to be spending a night, even if you're coming in from the road, from the dirt road from the back, you still have to have an overnight permit for that. But it's amazing. There's a lot out there to do. You just want to make sure, because it's all dry camps up there, you want to make sure that you're bringing enough water with you. And some of it's like this. The northern section is much more exposed than the southern section. You want to make absolutely certain you have sunscreen for the northern section. And then you'll see stuff like this. That's obviously, there's a watershed there. Beautiful forest. And then, so my tent is tucked in back there. I didn't know at that point that you're not supposed to be building these shelters. I'm innocent because I didn't build that shelter. But a lot of people do build shelters, and we just tucked in there thinking, all right, that's what you're supposed to do. This is like 10 years ago. And so there's a park ranger that we met out there that actually tears these down because he wants us to actually be wilderness. And I'm kind of in his camp on this, no pun intended. I took a little bath in that. There was fresh water coming out of the stream. I took a quick little rinse there. There's beautiful sunsets every night that we were out there, just stunning. That's Paul Seaver. He's the one who is picking up people's improperly disposed poo along the trail. His bag is full of it. He was in Backpacker magazine because of his efforts out there. And so you actually need to go below the high tide mark. If you can take your toilet paper out with you, that'd be great. But yeah, poo and pee below the high tide mark out on the beach. The ocean just washes it out. If you're going to be camping kind of up on the headlands a little bit, you want to make sure that you're, a couple hundred feet away from fresh water, and then you dig and bury your stuff, 6 to 8 inches, your standard kind of wilderness stuff. Just more scenery. Lots of driftwood out there. You can camp anywhere. Well, let me back it up. It's more dreamy to talk about camping. You can camp anywhere along there, but most people camp close to the water sources. So that's where you'll see kind of some pre-made campsites and stuff. And it's kind of a natural place to stop. Something to keep in mind is that you can camp within the impassable zones. Just make sure that you're up high enough so that when the water comes in, that the tide comes in, you're not going to get inundated. So again, you'll see some fire scarring out there. This actually happened from someone's camp stove. You want to just make sure your vegetation's far enough away from your camp stove so you don't end up creating something like that. Here's your second impassable zone. We stayed in Buck Creek that night. Paul Seaver, the ranger, is the one who suggested it's a beautiful campsite. And then you'll see the indication of that, the red dots that kind of go away from the coast. And that will bring you up to King Peak. This is another impassable zone. This one was hard to find. We ended up going past it and had to backtrack. And it's hard to find because it literally is straight down. So that couple that's in front of my friend Robert and I, they were really nervous and they were jumping the gun a little too early on some of the tides. This is when you come down. The whole thing is scary, but that stuff that you see off in the distance there, right at the end of that fin that comes down, that's where waves were splashing up, and it can get pretty deep there. I've seen people on video kind of going through where the water is. You can just kind of go over that flat spot if you've got, good traction. But people just hang out and wait. The French couple went across there a little too early, which is unfortunate. They made it, but we decided to just don't pick up on other people's stress or fear on this trail. So yeah, be prepared for that. Yeah, those waves can be really scary. Here's Robert. I went ahead of him at that point, and he's popping through the other side of that section. And you've got 4 miles, and you've got tide that's going out, and then it's coming back in. And so you use your tide chart to kind of figure out how much time you have to get across here. It's beautiful trail. Don't let the scary waves deter you. Robert had stashed his poles to get through this section. A beautiful place to get water. This is Buck Creek where we camped that night. There were some other people there. We were they were really close to the shore. We decided to kind of camp up just a little ways. Beautiful. And then you can see our bear can there. We did put that a ways away from us. And you're technically supposed to do that. And I really, really recommend it out there. Sunset. And you can see the water's coming in and you're locked in. This is looking south towards Shelter Cove. And there's no, you could take the trail up to King Peak to get out of there, but the dirt road getting back in there is only 16 miles, but it takes an hour to cover. It's pretty rugged back there. And then we got up really early. We got up on the earlier low tide so that we could meet up with our guy for the resupply. We could see these headlamps coming off from the distance, and it's a really popular area for people to surf. So these guys are coming in, having a good time. So as I was mentioning, you need the bear can out there. Don't be trying to do the bear rope stuff that we do here in Minnesota. This is, we're leaving an impassable zone. So the tide's gone out. This is fresh beach. The only tracks that we saw on the beach were these huge bear footprints. And what I discovered with animal footprints is that they kind of meander because they're sniffing and hunting. And human footprints are just kind of in a straight line. And so if next time I go back to this spot, or next time I'm there and I see bear tracks or human tracks, I'll be able to see the animal tracks just even from a distance. I won't even need to see the print right in front of me to know that that's an animal track. But they scout around. So you want to make sure you have your stuff in a bear can. You pop out at Black Sands Beach in Shelter Cove. It's beautiful. And that's at the northern section of this little map of Shelter Cove. And then we hiked across down to the southern end by Malcolm's Park. We'd asked Bill when we were in his vehicle. We said, "Hey, we're going to be in a civilization for the resupply. Is there a place where we can eat?" And he suggested the RV park, which is just at the end of this little airport. It's over there on the right. It's a blurry photo because I pulled it off the internet, so resolution's not that great. But that's Shelter Cove, and then some of the little signs that you'll see there. It's a cute little coastal town. We ended up at the RV park, which has a little grocery store. It's got a great deli, fish and chips. I couldn't wait to have those. They've got entertainment every night. If you decide you want to hang out in Shelter Cove for a night, you can do that. You could camp there, maybe take a shower, that kind of stuff, do some laundry. And then these are the yummy fish and chips. And they've got great white beer, which I thought was cute. And then they've got some stuff, I think that's from the Lost Coast Brewery, which is perfect. And then Mendocino Brewery too. It was fun, stuff from the area. Then when we got picked up for our resupply, he actually drove us to the next section of the BLM land, which is south of Shelter Cove. And you'll see that there's a change in vegetation here and also in terrain. Now, all of this is essentially impassable zones. So you end up in the woods a little bit more and on the switchbacks. Beautiful Manzanitas is really dry there. But that changes fairly soon. You get up high enough here to where you can look back east inland to all the different mountain ranges back there. We stayed at, I think this is Nick's Creek here, Nick's Camp. The water source, we got here pretty close to dark. There was quite a bit of garbage around, which I cleaned up. And then the water supply was really hard to find. It was about a quarter mile away down this really steep hill in the woods. So it's not a camp you want to get too late. And again, poison oak is everywhere. We were there in September, so the fall colors were helping us out quite a bit, being able to identify the poison oak. It's the red stuff and some of the green. And it grows and climbs up trees. It's just kind of all over. You want to make sure, even just if a branch touches your skin, you want to make sure you're using this stuff here. You read the instructions. We didn't bring the whole thing. You just need to bring a little dollop of it. You want to make sure that you wash it off, use it with cold water ideally, and 15 minutes within exposure, and then just rinse the soap off. You want to be really careful about how you're taking your clothes off at night. Don't bring your hiking pants and stuff in the tent with you. I always let mine sit outside in the vestibule. Was really careful about how I took that on and off. Everybody out there talks about poison oak. It's horrible. I've never seen examples of it. I've never had it. I don't want to have it. So here we are having a little snack. And then this happened. And so big that it can't really shake its antlers. It can just shake its fur. So we found out from a volunteer at down the Sinkyone, the southern section, that the male elk will do this. They'll try to make their antlers look big. We're just before the rutting season, so you want to be really careful about the whole elk situation there. And to make themselves look more attractive, they'll try to make their antlers look really big. So they'll pick up branches and pine needles and all that stuff. I was teasing Robert saying that this guy had quite a big crush on him. It was beautiful to see. We did see a few down there. I was wondering why Robert had back here. He stopped dead in his tracks. I didn't know what was going on until that happened. That was pretty cool. So they do have a reintroduced Roosevelt elk there. I believe they're the biggest elk in North America, or at least down the lower 48. But again, you'll start noticing that the vegetation is changing here. And then we cross the boundary into the state park, Sinkyone Wilderness State Park. This is that other map. I would highly recommend Jones Beach Camp. We were hustling in to get to Needle Rock Visitor Center to pay the day use fee or the overnight fee. It's super chill. It's super laid back. Don't worry about it. You're on the honor system. Don't hustle like we did. The next day at that place, they do have the little box, and there it is. They do have someone there, throughout the day, off and on. They might go up for a hike, but it's not anything like Usel Road access point. You can drive to Needle Rock Visitor Center, that dark black line you see. And I had realized when I was there, I thought, man, this looks familiar. I was there probably 15 years earlier. And it's beautiful, really special place. We stayed at the Streamside Camp near the Needle Rock Visitor Center, or the Barn Camp, Streamside Camp. Barn Camp is actually a building. It's pretty cool. I'll show it to you here in a second. Needle Rock Visitor Center is beautiful. And they have running water there and stuff too. Vegetation completely changes. You're in a little bit of like a cloud forest and stuff there. And that's the shoreline. And then the mountains are hidden by a bank of fog. That did lift. This is morning, which is exquisite. It's incredibly beautiful. So you have a bunch of cormorants out there on the sea stacks. There's sea stacks all over down there. This is the Needle Rock Visitor Center. Robert's over there on the right. Beautiful flowers around. It's really cool, kind of a seaside cottage look to it. It's not what you'd think of as like a visitor center at all. And this structure is there too, and this is considered a campsite. It's first come, first served. There were people staying there. If you get lucky enough, there's a bundle of wood there, and you can see some water that they brought in. They probably drove in. The odds of getting that spot are pretty minimal. This here is Bear Harbor. I'm just trying to keep an eye on the time here. This is, it's an old road, logging road that takes you down in there. It's one of the most beautiful places I've been to in my life. It's incredibly beautiful. And then on this section, that's all poison oak over there on the right. And then you start seeing these entering tsunami hazard zone signs. I mean, you're in tsunami hazard zone up in the northern section, but the southern section is where you start seeing the signage. And then a Bear Harbor camp. So you're going to see Orchard Creek Camp, Railroad Creek Camp. These are vestiges of the logging days, and sometimes you'll see some remnants and stuff around. These are old eucalyptus trees, which are non-native to the United States. And then you can see an old stone bridge off in the distance there too. It's beautiful. This is Bear Harbor, again, one of my most favorite places on earth. That little orange dot that you kind of see on the left, that's Robert's backpack down there, just to give you a sense of scale. It's gigantic. And then there's the kind of an isthmus that sticks out, and it's kind of, you're kind of between two harbors actually. And you'll see some old railroad ties kind of jutting out on the other side where he's standing. Again, more poison oak. It's everywhere. This is a view north from the southern section. It's Sinkyone Wilderness State Park. Incredible, incredible views. And this is one of many. So as you always, you know, when you're meeting other backpackers on the trail as you're going opposite directions, we met a couple that had camped here, where essentially where we were standing. You can see another tent there off in the distance. And that guy had been out there for a couple nights, but that ground that's all torn up, that was elk fighting. And we were going to fight into their campsite and into their tent and stuff. And that kind of went on all night long. And that's the sunset. And I'm drawing a blank on the name of this campsite. It's, hold on a second here. Let me find this. Wheeler campsite. This is really a beautiful spot. And then we did the next morning, I was laying in the tent and it sounded like plastic chopsticks clanking. And I thought, oh my God, I know what this is. These are elk fighting. And these two had been fighting. The guy that was in the tent that was across the beach, he was out there filming it. And then he said, yeah, check this out. The elk had stopped fighting. And he said, check this out. So he starts playing it back on his iPhone. And they do this little weird like ee sound when they're fighting. And you could hear that through the iPhone, and that elk there on the right could hear this, and it starts standing up and kind of stomping its feet and starts coming toward us. It was one of these things I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna get into a fight with an elk. So don't mess around like that. They respond. And so you'll see Wheeler site is kind of top middle. And then you'll notice that there's got kind of a green grove, and then you'll see over to the right, there's Sally Bell Grove. You do go through old growth redwoods. And so you'll know when you're in one of those. Just take your time, but kind of build that into your trip and just really soak that in, because that's some beautiful stuff. And there's Robert's backpack, and all of that stuff you're looking at is poison oak. This is Little Jackass Creek campsite, one of my absolute favorite campsites on earth. Robert's back there setting up the tent. And then we looked over and saw these three tents, and they had battened down the hatches. And I thought, where are these people? This is the weirdest thing. And then we saw this. Super cool. There were 4 people out there. A couple is on the left and the right. The guy in the red, that's Kim Granfield. He owns Sunrise Mountain Sports in Livermore, California, where I've presented on the Lost Coast, even though I'm from Minnesota, and the trails in their backyard. And then that guy in the green, I think his name is George. He's one of the top 2 kayakers out on the West Coast. So they were out there having a blast in really heavy duty gear with heavy duty high kayaks. It was great. And sunset rolled in. We made fast friends. We're all sharing scotch or wine or whatever we had left, because it's the end of both of our trips. And then Kim is a phenomenal photographer. This is this sea cave that they had just kayaked through. He shared this photo with me. And he also shared this one with me. He's a really good nighttime photographer. It's beautiful. This is the same place, Little Jackass Creek. It's just stunning. So this is leaving the next day. You'll see the little tiny kayaks down there. One of the guys had taken off early, and they're leaving. But it gives you a sense of perspective. It's kind of, and we're not up that high actually. There's some more non-native stuff that's spreading around. That grass was really sharp on the arms. This is coming back. We're looking now down on Usel Road. That little brown road you kind of see, like almost in the middle of the photo. That's Usel Road coming in from the other side. At the beginning of the presentation, that's where we're driving in. That's the campsite the campground down there inland. It goes in quite a ways. And then we were hungry afterwards and stinky, and somebody said, hey, you can get great burgers at this place, the Peg House Grill, which was really a good thing, because you could sit outside underneath this gigantic parachute. They have live entertainment there too. Was really happy to be able to do that. We had great weather the whole time. It started raining a little bit on the windshield as we were making our way out, and they were predicting an inch of rain within just a very short period of time. So we're really happy to be out of there. I do have a do-it-yourself cheat sheet, so if you want that, this is just like a snippet of it. I left it just 2020. I'm assuming a lot of this, hopefully, I'm being optimistic, will go back to the way it was. Um, and feel free to reach out to me, send me an email at michelle@backpackthetrails.com, and I'll send it out to you. Um, and then that's my contact information. Adon, do you have any questions that have come up?
Michelle, can you hear me?
Adon, are you there?
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
thank you. Yes.
Great. Yeah, it just takes me a
Yep.
second to unclick the mute button there. I don't see any questions here. A lot of great photos. I love seeing all the driftwood and I guess even the poison oak. It's beautiful, even for what it is.
It is. It is
And
really
it
beautiful.
was great to see Robert, your hiking partner, your friend there in the shots as well. Special
Yeah.
cameo.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
dropped
Exactly.
your email address in the chat box so people can reach out to you, and also drop the link to the website Backpack the Trails.
Thank you.
Um, excuse me.
And I usually like to alert Robert when he's going to be in a cameo. I think this is the first time I didn't. So people are running around asking for his autograph or something. You might want to tell him why.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, I can kind of faintly hearing the last shopping announcement here. It looks like we're about to close at the store. We have plenty of time here. We're streaming virtually, so we're good. Um, I lived in California for a number of years, went to college, and had never even heard of this trail, and maybe my mind was just elsewhere at the time. But looking back, I greatly miss the ocean and the sand and the topography and the change of even just seeing the differences between Southern California and Northern California, the vegetation, it's remarkable place. It was really beautiful. I think your photos did a lot of justice to it. So good job on that.
Thank you.
Um,
It's so beautiful. It really is. I mean, a lot of people will ask me, what's your favorite trail? And that's such a tough question to answer
yeah.
because this is right. And when I give a presentation on this, I'm like, oh no, the Lost Coast is my favorite
Yeah.
trail. So
Looks like someone's asking, is San Francisco the closest airport?
San Francisco and Sacramento are about equidistant, but if you're going to be
Mhm.
flying into Sacramento, unless you can fly direct, you're probably going to transfer through San Francisco anyway.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, those are the closest big airports. You've got some smaller airports out there and stuff, but those start costing quite a bit. I
right.
think the closest one would be up by Eureka or Arcata. If you're going to be flying into a smaller airport, I'll actually be flying into what the airport in Shelter Cove. If the weather holds, I'll be flying into that in a
Okay.
small Beechcraft Bonanza here in June.
I,
So,
uh,
and
I
if
I
not,
might have missed it in the presentation, but how many nights, days was this trip, or would you anticipate for
this
someone doing
was
this?
good question. This was about 7 days
Okay.
or 7 nights. You could do it in less than that. Some people want to blast through this really fast. You can do that. Um, April through October are the key times to be there. I'm
Okay.
trying to think of anything else that people typically ask about. It can get pretty hot on the northern section. You want to,
Okay.
if you're going to do the whole thing, just, it gets cool, it cools off at night. Just make sure you're bringing your, mid-weight smart wool or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely
So,
kind of mixing up in that desert kind of environment. It can feel really hot during the day, and then you're if you haven't experienced it, you might think that it's just going to be hot at night, but it's quite the opposite.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Is there ever? I look at some of the shots that I saw too. There was kind of a low hanging fog through some of the trees and by the water. It's such a cool, surreal experience.
It reminded me of the movie called Land of the Lost. I mean, that
Oh yeah,
aged me a little bit, but the huge plants and just really lush. I mean, lots of ferns. It's breathtaking. It
yeah.
really is. And that's the southern section has that. And like I said, a lot of people, they just do the northern section. They say, I've done the Lost Coast. And I always say, so did you do the southern section? And like, no, you only did half the Lost Coast. And I remember being at that RV park and this one woman, she said to me, there were some bikers there, motorcyclists, and she said to me, "You're doing the southern section. Oh, prepare to have your mind blown. Prepare to have your mind
I
blown."
love that.
Yeah, and she was accurate. I mean, I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. So,
That's fantastic.
yeah.
It's kind of interesting seeing the just sort of you're hugging the shoreline there, and you're, the ups and downs, and having to, s- skirt these impassable zones and really work on your timing a little bit. Did you find that you like some people are when they get up in the morning, they're like they get a late start or they get an early start. You're kind of maybe in two camps there, and in this with this particular different type of approach, having to deal with the water, like did that change much for you, or were you just
Oh
um
yeah, you're definitely on a schedule. I mean,
yeah.
you want to make sure, and you want to get yourself up there the night before, up to Mattole River campground if you're going to be doing it north to south like I did.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, you've got to break camp at a certain time. You've kind of made an agreement with the elements that you're going to be attempting this at certain time frames.
Right.
You can't just, like, hey, like this is great coffee. I'm just going to sit here all morning and, maybe we'll do a little bit this day or a little bit that day. You really have to know where the different water sources are located, where the tides are coming in, and adjust your timing and your pace. And I mean, it's my trip online, you'll see it's really specific times that I list for everything because we are on a schedule. And I don't do that with my other trips. You can just say, hey, I'm going to just, we're going to backpack until, whatever, and we're going to have dinner at 6.
Sure.
So
Did you
somebody, you get to camp at like 2 in the afternoon, but that's because you're trying to make that tide in the morning. And it's like, well, you can explore some of those side trails and stuff.
yeah. Did you was the and the terrain there is very rugged.
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of they I think they technically sort of call it, I don't know if it's a technical term, but it's like a tortured beach.
Oh yeah.
And did you find, you know, sort of the transitions or any difficulties, or if you've had clients maybe that have had issues with some of the bigger rocks and the sand and just kind of a different type of footprint that you're walking on versus maybe something that they might be used to more like here in Minnesota, hard pack
Oh,
trails.
it's a different type of hiking. It really is. And I mean, the person who actually taught me how to do that was that ranger, Paul Sievert, because I was using my traditional poles, getting really good foot plants and stuff. And sometimes the poles get stuck. And then I
Mhm.
watched what he was doing, and he just kind of floated across the top of the boulders quickly. And so that's, I mean, it depends on people's comfort level and stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's some serious ankle breaker moments for extended periods of time out there, really. And so there is kind of an art to it. Um, and giving yourself enough time to get across those impassable zones, it's really important.
Yeah, I would think, I mean, gear nowadays, is getting better and better, and really just, and I wouldn't say better and better, it's just getting lighter and lighter and smaller, which is great. That helps us carry hopefully the items that we need, and with less weight. But I would think that kind of maybe keeping your pack weight down might help in some
Oh,
of these
totally.
trickier sections,
Yeah.
because I have a blog up here that I'm kind of just looking at as well, and the this particular article, the old creaky knees, and they say it's not the best walk for people with knee or joint problems.
Well, I don't know. You can say that about a lot of different trails.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Going down the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier, if you've got bad knees, that's not a trail you want to do.
Hmm.
But yeah, this it's a more demanding trail. It's definitely not the Superior Hiking Trail. I'll tell you that. And I mean,
Right.
that is on demands. People are kind of surprised by how tough that trail is, but no, this is a totally different ball game. It really is.
Yeah. Have you did you see many like hikers out there with dogs? I think this would be a
Uh,
tricky one with
I
dogs.
just saw that one dog. That was
Okay.
it. And
Yeah.
I saw a lot fewer people on the southern section. Most people don't do that. And I didn't see
Yeah.
any dogs out there at all. So,
Okay.
but yeah, you want to really keep track of their feet and make sure, I mean, really
Mm.
assess that before you go out. You're dealing with
Yeah. I mean, their
beach
paws
sand.
probably get really tore up, I would think.
Yeah, and some of that sand is pretty dark too. So you've got some heat issues. If their feet are getting wet, you've got the sand is going to kind of rip up their feet. So
Hmm.
that's your decision. But some people, if you get on the Lost Coast Facebook page, this is a topic that comes up from time to time. And some people say just don't bring your dog, but
Yeah. I
that's
mean, I think when you choose to bring the dog, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I would think that my trip would end if my dog is having issues.
right.
You know what
I
I
know.
mean? Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
leave my dog there. I don't, don't
No,
currently have a
no,
dog, but
no.
it's like you have to think about other aspects. Their kit, what they're gonna be, their food, wound care, etc.
Well, your exit points on this, I mean, honestly, your exit points on this are Mattole River Campground or Shelter Cove.
Yeah.
You'd end up having your dog hike up all these huge
Mhm.
trails up these 4,000-foot climbs, and then you're in the middle of nowhere. So yeah,
Yeah.
your only exit points on this are Mattole Road, Shelter Cove, that's over the 25 miles, and then on the southern end, you pop out of Useful Road. My God, I can't even imagine trying to hitchhike your way out of there. That would be impossible. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I have a shuttle arranged for that.
Um, so I just kind of want to circle back to the sort of the navigational aspects of this. You mentioned, I think, briefly that you had difficulty kind of finding maps in the sort of the printed version. And did you find that or in your searching now, or maybe you haven't, but are there more maps now available in a
You
printed
know, I
version,
did.
or most people doing digital like Gut Hook or Avenza type?
Most people are doing the digital, relying a little bit more on that, and then just kind of going with these different these other maps. I mean,
Okay,
I didn't check to see if Nat Geo has paper maps out there yet. I don't think that they do, but it
right.
is getting to become a more popular trail. And so, as always, don't just rely on the digital stuff. I mean, I did this with those paper maps that you saw.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, digital Guthook is a great app for the northern section of Venza for the southern section. Um, yeah, and then I mean the southern section map that I used is not. It's just not that great, and so it's just kind of a rough sketch.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
It's always a tricky thing. I have um this sort of notion in me that wherever I go, I'm always trying to buy maps.
Oh yeah.
I go to Pinedale. I always pick up a few extra maps because I know how not that maybe the maps change that often, but it's kind of hard to plan a trip without sometimes a paper map. Maybe I'm just a little more old school. I like to have something to write on, and I have not made the transition over to digital maps, but I do have a Venza on my phone now, and mostly use it for fishing. But it's becoming definitely more of the way to go, and I think just all you got to do is just kind of have your battery backup, and it doesn't hurt to have a paper copy as well in the back pocket just in case,
Well, with
regardless
my
of speed.
wilderness first responder training, you're supposed to have a
Yeah.
paper map up with you. So, and I'm just doing a quick Google search here on my iPhone as far as like National Geographic, if they have a map out of the Lost Coast yet. They don't. Hopefully they
Yeah.
will soon.
Yeah,
Like
that
a
would be
hard
great. Yeah.
copy.
I'm on the BLM site trying to see what I can find there. Sometimes there's some interesting links available there. But um, thank you, Michelle. Thank you to
Yep.
Backpack the Trails. You do have some clinics coming up at the store, don't you?
Yes, actually I do. Backpacking 101. It's May 11th, May 12th, June 1st, June 30th. Some of the June 1st is sold out. May 12th is sold out. May 11th has a few spots left.
And these are
Uh,
in person, by the way.
yes.
Yeah, these are in person. We are limiting the amount of attendees just due to COVID. It's in a 60 person size room in our store, or if it's nice out, possibly outside in our boatyard or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Looks like I've got another question that came in here. Do you have time for another question?
Yeah, I do. And just a quick note. So
Yes.
indoors, we're limiting that to 15 people.
Correct. Yep.
And so that's why we're charging $10 so that people have skin in the game, so that if they're not going to show up, they want their $10 back, that we can open up a wait list for other people to get in
Yes.
there. And attendance has we've filled it 15 people. So if you're interested in that, go ahead. I do teach the backpacking first time trips on the Superior Hiking Trail. I've got a full traverse of Isle Royal. I've got a couple of full traverses of the Border Route Trail that I just got up on my website. We'll be crashing at the
Nice.
end of that at Gunflint Lodge, which is beautiful. Have a nice dinner
Yeah.
there and stuff. It's cool. So yeah, I got a
Um,
bunch of different trips.
Here's that question, and there's probably a couple ways that you could probably address this, but how would you recommend training for the boulder crossings if you live in the flatlands?
uh, if you're going to be going for a run, do trail running and stuff. Don't be running just on paved trails. It's really good to get those kind of pivoting muscles and stuff in your ankles stronger. Um, that's what I would suggest as far as if you're going to train here on the flatlands. Just don't be on a super flat trail.
Yeah.
Even if you're just going to hike, just get on some trails that aren't just super flat.
Yeah, go to Afton, go to Whitewater State Park.
Yeah.
Go up to the North Shore, get some elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. I don't see any other questions coming in. Just want to remind everyone that this and all of our presentations have been recorded and are posted to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midwest Mountaineering. You can find all the presentations there from this spring's expo. We have one more presentation coming up at, I think, 5:30 here soon on sea kayaking in Lake Superior. So thanks again, Michelle.
Thank
Always a
you,
joy to
everybody.
chat with you virtually and always in person too.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to seeing you around the shop. You've been a great inspiration to getting people outside during this pandemic, and I look forward to seeing what else you do. So
Thank you.
enjoy
Thanks,
the
Doug.
rest of your
Great.
day. Happy May, happy Mabon. Take care.
You too. Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.